Most people I speak to when I'm out and about, people in hip hop and so, people in pro sports and entertainment, most of them are scared of stocks. I'm the only person I know in my circles who even touches the stock market. Why do you think so many people are scared of the stock market?
I think that if you're talking about black people in general, I think that black people, unfortunately, because of slavery kind of beat out a lot of our ambition and desire and drive to try new things. Because remember, on the plantation, if you went too far out of your comfort zone, that could get you killed. And it didn't just get you punished, but you were punished severely in front of other people in some of the harshest manners humanly imaginable. I mean, a lot of this stuff is stuff we're not even taught in school about how they tortured the slaves. I mean, would make them eat shit. Would make them, would rape a father in front of his son. I mean, just do these horrible things to us to literally beat out any desire that we had to try new things or to leave the plantation or to stand up to the master or anything like that. So a lot of that psychological oppression, it exists to this day. Human memory is short, but cultural memory can go back hundreds or even thousands of years. And so a lot of what you see in the black community now is that, as a result of what you've seen with oppression, you have a lot of fear. Oppression can lead to all forms of trauma, from abuse to addiction to other things like that. We experienced that during childhood. What that does is that makes you see risk very differently. A child who grows up in a safe, healthy, protected environment, he sees risk as, ooh, if this goes well, look at how much money I can make. A child who grows up in a traumatic environment where he's been abused or neglected or abandoned, he's going to see the same risk and say, ooh, if this goes wrong, look at all the bad things that can happen. So as a result, what you have is, in the black community, you have fewer people who start their own businesses. I mean, we are far disproportionately low in terms of percentage of us who actually go out and start our own businesses. Most of us really believe that we're supposed to work hard and go to school so that we can learn how to go work for a white man. That's what we're trained to do from birth. The other thing that you see is you don't see black people investing as much in the stock market because anything that involves some probability that they might lose their money can be very scary for people, especially if they don't understand it. The other thing, too, is that many African Americans who are doing well, a lot of them are first generation in terms of wealth. Many of us still don't understand the idea of what it means to actually build wealth in the first place. And then a lot of us are investing our money taking care of loved ones who are struggling, who aren't doing as well as us. So by the time you get around to thinking about investing in the stock market, that's a little more difficult to do. So what I would say to people that are afraid of the stock market is this. Number one, go to your bank and just say, I want to invest in mutual funds, and ask them to explain to you the different types of mutual funds that you can invest in. Don't try to pick the right stock. Don't feel like you have to be an expert in the stock market. Mutual funds will diversify your money, put it in hundreds of stocks, so that it's not a matter. So when one stock goes up, the other one goes down, it all balances out. You're not going to lose your money. And then the second thing is, never think that you don't have enough money to start investing in the stock market. You can get $10 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever, taken out of your paycheck that automatically goes into this account, and it'll grow steadily over time. And that's pretty much exactly the strategy I use. I didn't try to pick the right stock at the right time. It doesn't mean people can't do it, but it's very, very hard to do. I just put my money in mutual funds and left it alone. I didn't even look at my account. I would just make sure that I was putting a certain amount in every month. And over the years, if you invest in the stock market for 10, 15 years, your money will grow because the stock market over any 15-year period of time has always grown. So that's a strategy I would take for people who are afraid of the stock market.
One of the things that you said was own the land on which you stand.
Yes.
Can I infer from this that you believe in owning the house that you live in and owning property in general?
I mean, own something. Either own something or somebody's going to own you. We forget the difference between being associated with something powerful and actually owning the power of that thing that we're associated with. The fact is that if you're working for IBM and you're making big money with IBM, you're vice president or whatever, that's not yours. I mean, that's not your company. That wasn't really built for you. You can't pass that to your kids. And if you're not careful, with your money and you're just running through your money every month like it's a water faucet, then you won't have anything to show for all the hard work that you put in. I think that we have to really reclaim the value of understanding what it means to actually own something and really taking pride in that. And understanding that every great tree, every great economic tree that we see in our society, every big sycamore, these big corporations worth billions of dollars, every one of those big trees started with somebody planting a tiny seed. The Ford Motor Company started with Henry Ford, who didn't even have an 8th grade education, so not going to school is not an excuse. He planted a little seed, started this little motor company, and now it's a multi-billion-dollar company. You can go back to every single company pretty much and remember that time where somebody planted one little seed. Even Silicon Valley was started at a time where most Americans, most white people even, didn't go off and start their own businesses. 8 engineers got together and said, we're sick of this crap. We're leaving our corporations. We're leaving our jobs. Let's all sign a pact on the back of this envelope to go out to California and create our own company. And at that time, there was nothing in Silicon Valley except orange groves and a bunch of other crap. And they literally planted the seed that led to the I don't know if it's multi-trillion-dollar industry now that Silicon Valley has become. So what I would say is that if all of us commit ourselves to planting seeds throughout our lives, some of those seeds are going to grow into massive things that we can't even see in this generation. It might be 100 years from now or 50 years or 200 years, but you got to plant seeds. You can't just live on the branch of a tree that was built and planted by somebody else. That's not a way to live, because if you're not careful, you may live and you may die and no one will ever know that you were even here. So leave something for your kids so that they can remember what you contributed to the world, other than just getting up, going to work, coming home every day, going to bed and doing the same thing over again the next morning. That's to me, that's not a life worth living.
Let's talk about real estate for a second, because my personal opinion is that real estate, and owning a house in particular, is one of the biggest scams ever created and continues to be. And I'll explain why. And I've owned a number of properties over the years. I actually own some property now. Let's just say you buy a $1 million house, okay?
Right.
You put down $200,000 in cash, and now you have a 30-year mortgage, where you have to pay, I don't know what the interest rate is, but let's just say, $7,000 a month for the next 30 years. Now, you could take that same 100,000 and put it in the stock market. You could put it in a mutual fund or an index fund or anything of that sort. And with compounded interest, that 100,000 will turn into millions of dollars. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
It certainly can. And on average, it will, based on the last 100 years of the stock market or whatever. There's going to be some years it's going to go down a little bit, some years, but most years it will go up as a whole during that time. Now, that house that you live in now, the $1 million home in 30 years will probably be worth millions of dollars as well, but you are stuck to that mortgage for the next 30 years. Whereas with a house, you could always, if you decide that you want a more expensive or less expensive house, at the end of your 1-year lease, you can move away. Your money in the stock market is always liquid. Whereas if you sell your house, you have to get a buying agent, a selling agent. You have to give up a certain percentage of the final price. It has to sit on the market. It may sit on the market for a while without getting bought or sold, and certain years, the real estate prices fluctuate. So you don't know whether you're going to make a profit or not. Whereas with renting, you could really do whatever you like. And most times renting is either equal or less than a mortgage. But I feel that most people, when they have some money put aside, the first thing they do is go and buy a house with it. And I feel that prevents them from actually making money during the course of their lives.
Well, I'm not going to say you're wrong. In fact, I would say that it's a matter of varying perspectives, because it can be a complex thing. One area where I'm going to jump right on and agree with you 100% on is that owning a home is not for everybody. Owning a home, if you own a home, for example, in a place with high property taxes, the property taxes can eat through your money pretty bad. Chicago, for example, where I live, property taxes are through the roof. That's one thing. If you live in a place like New York, it's very, very difficult to get a house in a lot of areas because the real estate costs so much. Some people don't want to be tied down to one location for a very long period of time. Some people don't want to even deal with the yard work and spending thousands of dollars, getting things done on the house that you can't even see. Oh, the foundation needs to be redone or whatever. Like, no, a lot of people don't even understand that stuff. They're like, why am I giving $10,000 to fix this thing in my house and it won't even make it look better? It's just something that some carpenter told me I need to do. So I'm not going to say that owning a house is always a bad thing, but I will say that it's certainly not always a good thing. So I think we have to get that out of our head to believe that we have to buy a house and own a house. In fact, when I started my business, I didn't buy a house because I knew that I could get better tax write-offs by owning my business. I knew that I didn't want to be in the same location. I didn't want to deal with the hassle of owning a home. So I can say I'm living proof of the fact that owning a home is not always the best way to maximize your money. Where I do think that owning a house can actually work out for you is, first of all, you're always going to have somewhere to live, right? And so some people are not as ambitious as you or I might be. You're DJ Vlad. You're this billionaire or multi-millionaire businessman. You're killing it. You're doing all these great things. You're seeking to grow and expand. Everybody's not like you, right? Everybody's not like me. And so there are some people who just want to, have a spouse and 2 kids and go to work every day and have somewhere to live. I think in those situations, assuming the real estate doesn't cost too much, property taxes aren't too high, a home could be a reasonable investment because you're going to have to pay to live somewhere, right? So paying a high amount of rent over a long period of time, if you assume that in both cases you've got, say, $2,000 a month to use for living expenses, it might be better to put that $2,000 toward a mortgage than it would be to put that $2,000 toward rent, especially if your property value.
Okay, but hold on 1 sec. Hold on. Let me interrupt you for just one second.
That's okay.
Because when you have a mortgage, for the first 70% of your mortgage, you are paying rent to the bank in the form of interest payments because you're paying very little off the principal. So you're just paying rent to the bank. You're not really paying off your house until really damn near the end. So this is what I mean by the whole scam element of it. You could have a mortgage for 15 years out of the 30 and still owe most of the mortgage when you move out. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm, right. Now, what I would say in that situation, and again, I'm not going to say that it can't be, that it's always going to be a good investment or a bad one. I would certainly say it depends. But, one thing that we can say is that, the government does allow your interest to be tax deductible. So you get that tax write-off. And then second of all, if you live in a market where the real estate values are going up pretty rapidly, for example, in the mid 2000s, 2004, 2005, home values were flying up. I knew people that would take, a $1 million mortgage to buy $1 million house. I'm talking about no money down, and the house would be worth 1.4 in 2 years. So they make $400K and just sell the house, pay off the old mortgage, and keep the $400,000 in equity. In those types of markets, I think a person could do okay. But not every market is like that. And I think that what we've learned over the last several years is that home values don't always have to go up. They can go down. A lot of people are still struggling because the middle class, most of their wealth was caught in the value of their home. So I think that definitely what a person should take away from what you just said, which I don't disagree with what you're saying. I mean, I think that you're right. There are situations where owning a home can be bad for you. I think what people should take away from that is don't let your home be the majority of your wealth. If you're building wealth, if you want to build part of it through your home,
right.
I'm not going to say that's always a bad move, but have other things that you're invested in because the real estate market is not always going to be a cash cow for you. And a lot of people fell for that back during the real estate bubble during the Bush administration.
Where we are as men, we just understand the equity in our relationship. You know what I'm saying? And the good outweigh the bad.
Okay, we can't hate on her, so let's say she has AIDS. Okay, now let's call her a fat bitch. Like, well, you already said I had AIDS, and so you think you calling me a fat bitch is gonna really hurt me?